Okay, I'm going to go through some steps on doing a cover stitch on fleece, and it's fairly easy to follow. It takes a little bit of extra work, but in the end you get a perfect hem. So the first thing you're going to do is put your fleece down. This is just a small piece that I've got, and we're going to do just an example, a 2-inch hem. And what we do is take on the wrong side of the fabric, right side, either one, and you're going to mark your 2-inch mark with pins. So try to get them as straight as you can. Just go all the way down your hem and set your pins in at the 2-inch line. And we're going to use these as our guide to fold. The problem is the stuff stretches so easily that you want to get an accurate fold. That way when you do your cover stitch, everything will be nice and even. And if you see you get your needle in a little bit crooked the way I just did, pull it out, make sure it's nice and straight, because again that's going to be your guide. Down here to the end. And this is also a good time to throw away any of your pins that are crooked. Like one of the ones I just had to do away with. Okay, once you get your pins in, just kind of verify that they're all at your hem mark. You may do 1 inch or 1.5 inch or whatever, just make sure they're even as you go across. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use that as our fold line when we fold over the hem. So okay. Once you get it folded over, you can kind of pat it down and get it nice and even, and then you're just going to take your iron and you're going to press this out and get it, again, make sure you're, like here I've got my stripes lined up, so you've got a pattern. Just make sure everything lines up when you're pressing it. And then we're going to take it to the, well, we're not going to take it to the sewing machine. What we're going to do next after we press it is, this is stitch witchery. You can use this or Wonder Tape or whatever, but we're going to come and we're going to put this just inside the hemline. We want to hold the hem in place, but we don't want it to get in the way of our stitching. So let me press this real quick and then we'll come back and we'll do that. Okay, one of the things I want to mention while I'm doing this, you want to press, you don't want to iron. So you want to get even where the needle is sticking out of the edge, and simply press it and hit it with a little bit of steam. That's all it takes. Okay, I've got the pins out, and now I'm going to do a good press on it before I put the hem tape in. So I'm going to go ahead and use my pressing cloth, because I'm going to hit it fairly hard here. And I've got a fairly hot iron, so I don't want to risk damaging the fleece in any way. Is the reason I'm doing this. It's already grabbed onto some of my pressing cloth. Stuff's like a net. This fleece will tack onto just about anything. Okay, Okay, that gives me a nice crease that I can follow now, so let's go ahead and get our stitch witchery, and we're going to cut a strip that covers the length of our hem. Okay, now we will take and roll our hem up. Now we've got that good memory line in there. And we don't want to put it on the edge. We want to put it in a ways, and I can kind of see where the line is here for the edge from me pressing it. So I'm going to put it in just far enough to where it doesn't interfere with any of my stitches. Invariably, I always have to cut it again, just a little bit shorter once I've laid it out. Make sure it doesn't go over the edge. And we're just going to roll our hem back over. Get my pattern lined up again before I lock it down. Okay, now we're going to hit it with some heat to lock everything in place. Quite line my edge up there. Should have paid attention to that. See if I can work it back around where it's nice and straight. I didn't exactly cut this perfectly straight on the edge down here, so that's not helping. Okay, I'm going to iron out my little imprints that I've got there. Okay, that's got it sealed down. Now we're going to let this cool, so let it set until it dries. It's like a thin layer of glue on there. And then we're going to take it over to the sewing machine, and we're going to do a basting stitch right along the edge here. And that's going to be our guide for when we do our cover stitch. So do as long of a stitch as your machine will do, or if you want to, you can do it by hand. But it's quicker by machine. Loosen your tension a bit so that the stitches will be easy to remove after you do your cover stitch. So let me let this cool. I'll go get over to the sewing machine, get set up, and we'll continue. Okay, we've given enough time for our steam-a-seam to dry, so now we've got a nice stable hemline. So what we'll do now, we'll do a basting stitch, and this basting stitch is going to be used for our guide. This is very handy when you're doing long stitches, because you can lose concentration and end up with the stitches not covering this underside here perfectly, where you've got the loops like you see on retail wear, where it's very consistent covering up the seam line. So what you want to do is you want to sew as close to this edge as possible. You may go off of it periodically, that's fine. You're going to be close enough in either way, as long as you don't veer too much off of that, to use that as your guide for when you do your cover hem. So set your machine up as long as stitch possible. This machine will go to a 7. I'm going to go to 5. I've loosened my tension a bit, about 2 turns on the knob from what it would normally be, And so I'm going to do nice long loose stitches. It makes it easier to get out when I do my cover hem. So here we go. And I'm just keeping my needle as close to that edge as I can get. It may go off periodically, that's fine. Again, this is not so much a basting to hold everything together, although it helps. It's more of a guide for when I do my cover hem. So the idea is I'm going to split the hair and stuff. Anyway, I'm going to split the basting stitch with my cover hem needles, and that way I'll get a good coverage here on the back side. I'm going to speed up here. You don't want to let this fleece catch on anything because it will stretch out. So hold it up here, let the machine just feed it through. And doing that kind of makes it really hard to do a perfectly straight stitch. Just stay as close to that edge as you can as you go along, and you'll be fine. Getting close to the end. And there's our basting stitch along the edge. That'll give us a good line to follow once we turn it over on this side to do our cover stitch. So let me get the camera moved to the cover stitch machine, and we'll do our cover stitch, and then we'll remove the basting stitch and look at our results. So I'll be right back. Okay, now we're at the cover stitch machine. I started set up on the industrial cover stitch machine, but I figured I'd just use the home machine instead, so to make it a little bit more relatable to the home sewers, because it works just fine. I've got gray thread in, so it'll show up a little bit of a contrast. Truth be told, that was what was already in the machine, so I'm just going to leave it in there. So let's see. Make sure our machine is on, and let's see, I'm going to go with a stitch length of a little bit over 2. I'm going to go ahead and make it 2.5 on this. Alright, here we go. And again, I'm splitting my basting stitch. It's going right in between my needles, so I've got a good guide there to follow. And what we should see on the opposite side is I'm covering my line there. Looks like I need to go a little bit further inside. Yeah, just a little bit. You'll notice after you start if you're fudging a little bit too far to one side or the other, and I can see it right now. I need to move over this way just a little bit, so I'll gradually move that way. There we go. Now I'm directly in the center. That should be better. And just go slow with this. It's not a speed race. Because of the nature of fleece stretching and things, be sure and keep it up off the table back here so it doesn't grab a hold of anything. Let the machine feed it nice and evenly. just trying to keep my eye on the needle and make sure that stitch is falling right in between, and that's all I have to concentrate on. Or my needle so it will release. And what do I do with my scissors? Yeah. Hang on, let me get my scissors. Okay, there we go. All right. So you can see there's our cover stitch right there. Now what we're going to do is remove our basting stitch, and I'm not going to bore you with this on camera, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut about every 2 inches or so on this side. Once I get this side removed, it's very easy, even though this is sewed over, to remove this side. So take your seam ripper and get it in and just pull a thread up. Be careful not to affect your cover stitch when you're doing it, but you should be able to pull. You can pretty much cut it in half, or if it's a real long blanket or something, just cut it about every 2 feet or so, and then you can pull it up and remove the stitch very easily. Sometimes you'll get lucky, and if you haven't hit it with any of the needles, you can actually pull the whole thing out. So let me do that, and I'll come back and show you the end results. Okay, I thought I'd go ahead and show you just quickly here how easy it is to remove the basting stitches. So I just come down here and I pull a few out. That'll give me something to grab a hold of once I start pulling it apart. So I can do that, and I can come about right here, and I'm seeing that I'm actually getting some of the fleece when I'm doing this, so I've got to be very careful not to do that. It's going to take several tries of me kind of pulling it up, and sometimes you have to go back in with your finger and push it down, but it'll easily come up. So now I've just got the thread, and I just pull it out. So there's my basting stitch. And I just repeat that, pull a few out here so I get enough thread where I can grab a hold of it. Okay, I've got the front side completely removed. Again, make sure your tension is loose enough to where it's, I mean, I had some threads that were actually standing up a bit away from it. It was so loose. That way you can get your seam ripper in there without grabbing a hold of the fleece. It's even with the way it was, I had to do it several times to get under it without grabbing a hold of the fleece and pulling on it. So just take the time to do that and you'll be fine. Okay, now on this side, we don't have any thread pulling on the other side, so all I have to do is come in here and be very careful and just pull the thread. And since there's no tension on it, the only place it may catch is if you sewed over it with the top thread at some point, and I'm looking down and I can tell I haven't done that. So let me just continue to pull, and it's that easy. So that pulled that side of the stitch out. I've still got this stitch down here locked a little bit. Let me loosen it up so I can pull it out. Yeah, it's got a hold of something there. I didn't back tack, so I don't know what it did. There we go. Get rid of all my threads. Okay, now let's look at the results of what we've got. See if all that work was worth the trouble. There's our stitch on the front side. So on fleece, it's tough to get it just perfectly even, but that's about as even as I'm going to get it when you're sewing long, because the stuff wobbles and moves around a bit and stuff. So, but more importantly, on the back side here, we're covered on the edge all the way down. So that's what you want. That way when you're using it, it won't come undone, and you've got a nice finished product in the end. So anyway, give that a try. Hopefully that will give you the benefit of, especially when you go all the way around a a fleece blanket, it helps to have that basting stitch, because it's hard to concentrate on keeping that perfect edge all the way around. And in that case, all you got to do is look and make sure that the two needles are going over the basting thread. Just keep it in the center all the way around, and you'll get the benefit of it covering the edge on this side and having a decently straight needle stitch on the front side also. So even though I went a little bit over 2, I'd probably go a little bit longer. I may do this at 3 if I had to do it over again on my stitch length. So hope this helps you out. If you have any questions, please let me know and I'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, take care.